Sit back and enjoy 2 hours of fascinating facts you didn't know. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Let's get started. An airplane that loses all its engines in mid-flight can continue flying for up to half an hour while it finds a place to land. Engines only provide forward thrust. What keeps the aircraft in the air are the wings. It is believed that the first fruit cultivated by humans was the fig. In traces of the earliest evidence of agriculture found in the Middle East, dating back around 11,000 years, fig trees were discovered. Eating spicy food can cause the brain to release feel-good hormones such as dopamine and endorphins, creating a sensation similar to when you finish exercising or after laughing a lot. The Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt was the tallest man-made structure in the world for 3,871 years, until Lincoln Cathedral in England was completed in 1311. According to new statistics, more and more people have prosopagnosia, or face blindness, the inability to distinguish different faces. It was originally thought that 2% of people suffered from it, but it is now believed that it may affect 1 out of every 33 people in some way. Giraffes can go longer without drinking water than camels, 21 days, while camels only last 15. Compared to humans, we can only survive 3 days without water. Discarding the peel of an apple removes 50% of its total fiber content and 30% of its vitamin C. There's a bacterium in the human digestive system that helps regulate food allergies. People who take many antibiotics at an early age have reduced levels of this bacterium, which increases their likelihood of developing allergies. Hands wrinkle when they are underwater for a long time due to an evolutionary trait. The brain triggers this change in order to provide better grip underwater and increase safety. The South Korean company Samsung was founded in 1938 and initially produced various grocery items, even making its own noodles, before moving into electronics in 1970. The Hyundai automobile logo, in addition to being a stylized H, also represents a handshake between a salesperson representing the company and a customer. The design of the Sydney Opera House includes 14 roofs of different sizes, and it is said that if they are all combined, they can form a perfect sphere. This design required the invention of new technologies in order to support the structure. There is a plant endemic to Chile called Bocchilla trifoliolata that is capable of changing its shape and adapting to resemble the tree it attaches to. It can change color, shape, and orientation to go unnoticed. It is the only plant known with this ability. In 2007, Comet Holmes temporarily brightened to more than 500,000 times its normal brightness. It is the largest phenomenon of this type ever observed. During that brief time, it became the largest observable object in the solar system. Caffeine dependence was proposed by the American Psychiatric Association as a mental disorder, but it was not officially included in the DSM-5, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. Brain mapping studies have not shown the typical activation of addiction circuits as happens with other substances. The last human structures to withstand the passage of time would be those carved into solid rock and those that are buried. For example, carved mountains, pyramids, tunnels, deep bunkers, and geological nuclear waste repositories. These things could last for millions of years. In contrast, the integrity of steel and concrete lasts only a few centuries. The transit of Venus is an astronomical event that occurs when Venus passes directly between the Sun and the Earth. It is like a solar eclipse, but the distance of Venus makes it appear only as a black dot crossing the visible face of the Sun for a few hours. This occurs every 243 years, with a pair of transits separated by 8 years, and then more than a century until the next pair. It sounds complicated, but it is very well calculated. There can even be a transit of Mercury and Venus at the same time, but it will take thousands of years for the next one to happen. There is a cricket known as the Kilauea lava cricket, or dark lava cricket, that lives exclusively in recently solidified lava flows produced by volcanoes in Hawaii. They arrive even before any type of plant life. When enough time passes and animals and plants begin to populate the area, the cricket simply disappears. There is a plant called Psychotria elata that has flowers known as the hot lips flower. It grows in Central and South America and is used as a medicinal plant to treat certain ailments such as ear pain. It is also called flaming lips. The red part is actually leaves that look that way for a short time before giving way to the flower buds. The Tetris effect refers to when a person dedicates so much time and attention to an activity that it causes them to form patterns in their thoughts as well as mental images and dreams. This often happens to people who play too many video games such as Tetris. Elephants are extremely good at smelling water. Their sense of smell is so strong that they can detect drinking water from a distance of approximately 12 miles. They developed this ability because they often live in regions where water is scarce. The range of frequencies our ears can detect goes from 20 to 20,000 hertz. If it could go below 20, you would be able to hear your muscles moving. Doritos can be made without powder, so they do not leave residue on your hands and still taste the same. However, the company Frito-Lay intentionally makes them that way because they claim having stained hands is part of the full product experience. Lizards do not have a defined average lifespan and could theoretically live forever if it were not for the effects of the environment around them. Many toothpastes contain small pieces of plastic that are purely decorative. These can become lodged in the gums and are also believed to be pollutants for the environment. Hummingbirds have such a fast metabolism that they need to be eating constantly. In just a few hours, they can run out of energy to fly. The farthest distance a human has ever traveled was approximately 249,000 miles. This occurred when the three astronauts of the Apollo 13 mission had an emergency and looped around the moon before managing to return to Earth in 1970. Walking on burning coals does not actually require as much preparation as those who do it claim, since hot coals are not good conductors of heat and do not have enough time to transfer the temperature to the feet. Even so, it is something that should not be done without all proper safety measures. According to a study that was conducted, spiders like classical music. They found that when techno and rap were played, spiders built their webs as far away from the speakers as possible, while when Bach was played, they built them nearby. Since 1850, it is estimated that more than 5,000 people have fallen from Niagara Falls, and of these, only 17 have survived according to records, including a woman who went over the falls in a barrel and was unharmed. According to studies by paleontologists, the prehistoric bird Quetzalcoatlus, one of the largest flying animals that ever existed, could have had a flight range of approximately 10,560 miles without landing, which is almost half the circumference of the Earth. It is a common myth that the X-Men character Cyclops can shoot heat rays from his eyes. In reality, these rays are concussive energy that feels like a physical blow, and even the comic creators themselves have made mistakes about this at times. The largest squid ever captured weighed approximately 992 pounds and measured almost 39 feet. If rings had been made from this squid, a popular dish in many countries, they would have been the size of a tractor tire. The human nose can distinguish more than 1 trillion different smells. 1 million has around 400 types of smell receptors that are connected to the nervous system and the brain. Some animals, such as dogs, can distinguish many more smells. To produce approximately 2.2 pounds of saffron, between 110,000 and 160,000 individual flowers have to be harvested, which amounts to more than 40 hours of work. For this reason, it is one of the most expensive spices. 90% of humans live north of the equator line, that is, in the northern hemisphere of the planet, mainly because there is more landmass in the north. The most populated cities in the southern hemisphere are Sao Paulo, Brazil, Kinshasa in the Republic of the Congo, Buenos Aires, Argentina, Jakarta in Indonesia, and Lima, Peru. The Rheobatrachus frogs of Australia are a genus of amphibians that swallowed their eggs so they could develop in their stomachs and then give birth through the mouth. They went extinct in the 1980s, but scientists at the University of New South Wales are working to bring them back using cloning. It is estimated that all crustaceans known as krill, found in all the world's oceans, exceed all humans in total mass, or biomass, which is approximately 836 billion pounds. More than half of these animals are consumed by whales, seals, penguins, and other animals each year. It is illegal to cook live lobsters in some parts of the world, such as in the city of Reggio Emilia in Italy, where you can be fined up to 495 euros for this practice. Some cats are born with more toes than normal. They are called polydactyl cats, and they are believed to be better at hunting mice. The Philippine golden-crowned flying fox, one of the largest bats in the world, does not possess echolocation, unlike the vast majority of bats. Instead, it relies on its senses of sight and smell to find food. It is currently endangered. Scientists calculated that humans began using clothing about 170,000 years ago. They argued this because during that period, a new species of lice emerged that can live in clothing. Walt Disney was against adding the famous spaghetti scene to the movie Lady and the Tramp, since he thought it was not romantic and would look a bit silly. However, an animator created the entire scene as a test so he could see the final result, and managed to convince him to include it. According to a study from the University of Queensland, extreme music such as heavy metal can influence people who experience anger, since listening to it can promote positive emotions and regulate sadness. For a time, Pepsi was the sixth most powerful naval force in the world. This happened because of a deal the company made with the Soviet Union, which paid with 17 submarines, one cruiser, one destroyer, and one frigate in exchange for selling Pepsi in that country. The payment was made this way because they did not have access to United States dollars. Later, Pepsi sold the fleet to a Norwegian scrapyard. For a short time in the 1970s, Iron Man's helmet included a nose, something that caused ridicule among comic book readers. This later became a published story in which Tony Stark decides to redesign it after attending a comic convention and being mocked. The Swedish warship Vasa is the only 17th century ship that has survived intact to the present day. It sank in 1628, but was recovered and restored in 1961. It is on display in a museum in the city of Stockholm. In South Korea, Peppedo Day is celebrated every year on November 11th, when people give boxes of Peppedo sweets, which are cookie sticks with a coating similar in flavor to Pocky. It is a tradition similar to Valentine's Day that began as a marketing campaign, and it takes place on the 11th day of the 11th month because the sweets have the same shape as the number 1. Ethiopia was one of the largest empires in the world in the 3rd century, being considered one of the 4 world powers alongside Persia, Rome, and China. The Alcubierre warp drive is a theoretical hypothesis proposed by the Mexican physicist Miguel Alcubierre. It is a type of engine that would allow travel faster than the speed of light by creating a bubble that contracts space in front of a ship and expands it behind, while inside the ship the speed of light would not be exceeded, so it does not contradict general relativity. In Futurama, it is mentioned that the Planet Express ship works in a similar way. The actor Cillian Murphy has so far smoked more than 3,000 fake cigarettes while portraying the character Tommy Shelby in the series Peaky Blinders. They are made with herbal ingredients that make them harmless. Icelandic horses are unique because they have remained genetically isolated since the first ones brought by the Vikings in the 9th century and show adaptations to the environment. To preserve them, a law was established stating that once a horse leaves Iceland, it is never allowed to return. The song "We Can't Stop" by Miley Cyrus was originally conceived by the songwriters to be performed by the singer Rihanna, while the song "Umbrella" by Rihanna was written to be performed by Britney Spears. The board game Senet is one of the oldest known games. It was invented in Egypt and is more than 5,000 years old. The sonic boom produced by the fastest airplanes cannot actually be seen unless the air at that moment has a high concentration of humidity, and the effect lasts only a fraction of a second. At one point, reality show characters from Jersey Shore were paid money not to wear certain clothing brands, since they were generally seen as bad publicity. They were also sent free clothing from competing brands so they would wear it. The total amount of fuel used by all the cars in all the races and practice and qualifying sessions of a Formula One season that lasts 1 year is less than the fuel used by a 747 airplane on a normal transatlantic flight from London to New York. And hundreds of flights like that are made every week. Dogs watch more television nowadays, but this is not because they have become more intelligent. It is because of the resolution and size of modern televisions. Older cathode ray tube televisions were too blurry for them to distinguish what was being shown. Authorities in France prevented a girl from being named Nutella and only approved the shortened form, Ella. The judge in charge said it was not allowed because it would be a reason for bullying as she grew up. Baily's beads are a chain of bright points of light that appear around the moon in the moments before and after a total solar eclipse. They are caused by sunlight shining through lunar mountains. They can only be observed for a few seconds. Magnolia flowers are so ancient that they evolved before bees. That is why they are pollinated by beetles, attracting them with special scented oils. These flowers have remained almost unchanged since the age of the dinosaurs. There is a theory that claims human intelligence may have arisen thanks to a random mutation in which the jawbones of our ancestors became shorter, allowing the brain to grow more in circumference. Every year, approximately 1,100,000 euros are collected from coins thrown into the Trevi Fountain in Rome. People usually make a wish each time they throw a coin. The money is used for its maintenance. 70% of the red meat consumed worldwide is goat meat, even though we usually think of red meat as beef, and it is one of the largest industries in food. The cooking extruder machine uses heat, pressure, and mechanical force to cook, mix, and shape foods into a final, ready-to-eat product. It is used to make products such as cereals and snacks. However, the first of these machines to be used industrially was to make dog food by the company Purina. Director Stanley Kubrick was inspired by a work by photographer Diane Arbus for casting the twins in the movie The Shining. These characters do not exist in Stephen King's original book. The main Star Wars theme, composed by John Williams, is heavily inspired by the music from a lesser-known movie from 1942 called King's Row. There are even moments where the notes and arrangements are the same. The Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco was originally going to be black and yellow to improve visibility for ships on foggy days, and the reddish-orange color was only meant as a protective coating. In the end, it turned out to be better for visibility, so they decided to keep it. The main character of the comedy-drama series Succession, the media mogul Logan Roy, is based on the real-life businessman Rupert Murdoch, whose company News Corp owns media outlets such as The Sun, Sky News, and Fox News. In addition, he has 6 children who are currently competing to see who will inherit the media empire, just like in the series. Robin Williams provided the voice of the genie in Aladdin in exchange for $75,000, but on the condition that his name and image would not be used in advertising and that his character would not take up more than 25% of the space on posters. In the end, Disney did not respect these conditions because they wanted to ensure box office success. As part of an experiment, a species of fruit flies was kept in complete darkness for 60 years, which is equivalent to 1,500 generations. When studied today, although they showed no apparent changes, their DNA had significant changes in 84 genes, showing that the environment influences genetics in a relatively short time. The acclaimed film director David Lynch appeared in 25% of all episodes of the animated series The Cleveland Show as a recurring character named Gus. He once said he did it only because Mike Henry, one of the writers and the voice of Cleveland, simply asked him to. There are people today who specialize in recreating the purple pigments that were used centuries ago as a symbol of status, since dyeing fabric required collecting and processing thousands of snails. These pigments can be purchased online at prices of up to approximately $70,875 per ounce. In addition to his work at Marvel, Stan Lee also wrote 15 comics for DC in the year 2000, including special editions and reimaginings of characters such as Batman and Superman. In Belgium, 4 languages are commonly spoken: Dutch, French, German, and English. 38% of Belgians use 2 or 3 languages at work, and 27% can converse in more than 3 languages. George Lucas's wife received an Academy Award in 1977 for Best Film Editing for the movie Star Wars. By contrast, to this day, George Lucas has not won an Academy Award. Contrary to what is traditionally believed, the Renaissance painter Michelangelo did not paint the Sistine Chapel lying down on scaffolding. In fact, according to one of his early 16th century biographies, he painted it leaning backward, and in one of the painter's own poems, he mentions the pain he endured from maintaining uncomfortable postures for so long. The longest walk ever completed was made by George Megan, who walked from the south of South America to the north of North America. It was 41 million steps. He had to use 13 pairs of shoes, and in the process, he broke 8 world records. The personal sushi chef of the then leader of North Korea, Kim Jong-il, managed to escape the country in 2001 when he asked permission to go buy a sea urchin to prepare a special dish. Sometime later, he wrote an autobiography with all the details of what he experienced in that position. In the 1989 movie The Abyss, there is a scene that demonstrates that a rat can breathe in a special fluid called perfluorocarbon. This scene is real. The rat was not harmed in any way and was breathing in this oxygenated fluid. To this day, this compound continues to be researched, as it could be used for human deep-sea diving or medical treatments. In the city of Odessa, Ukraine, there is a network of underground tunnels that were originally used for mining and later served as a shelter, called the Odessa Catacombs. It is one of the largest underground labyrinths in existence, with more than approximately 1,554 miles of passages. The highest-grossing non-animated comedy movie of all time is The Hangover Part 2, with $586 million. Giant anteaters do not produce any type of acid in their stomachs. Instead, the combined venom of all the ants they eat accumulates, and that is what allows them to digest them. At the New Year festival in Thailand, which takes place every April, people traditionally splash water on Buddha statues to symbolize purification. However, the tradition evolved into a massive water fight. People prepare with water guns, buckets, and hoses. There is a small military airline that operates at the Las Vegas airport and specializes in flying workers in and out of Area 51. The largest perfume factory of antiquity was discovered in Cyprus. It dates back to the Bronze Age, about 4,000 years ago, and covered an area of approximately 1.5 square miles, indicating that its production was almost industrial in scale. Red Square in Moscow, Russia, is not named in reference to communism, nor is it named for the color. In reality, its name comes from the word krasnaya, which meant beautiful in the 17th century, but the word later evolved to also mean red. The ancient Egyptians were already using metal long before the Iron Age, thanks to meteoric iron, primitive rock found in meteorites that contains metal without needing processing. Something similar happened in Greenland in South America, and it is the inspiration for Wakanda in Black Panther, where a civilization advances faster and becomes powerful thanks to metal from a meteorite. The first movie to feature a main character created with digital effects was Casper the Friendly Ghost in 1995. The digital work was done by the company Industrial Light and Magic. The comedian Javier Lopez Chabelo earned 2 Guinness World Records in 2012. The first was for 44 uninterrupted years on the air with his show En Familia con Chabelo, and the second was for portraying his character Chabelo for 57 years. One of George Lucas's motivations for creating Star Wars was that he tried to obtain the rights to make a Flash Gordon movie, but he did not succeed and had to make his own original film. The first collaboration between Marvel and DC Comics was in a Wizard of Oz comic in 1975. When Stan Lee found out that the two companies were each working on the adaptation separately, he contacted DC so that it would be a joint effort. To build many buildings in theme parks, a technique called forced perspective is used. As the structure goes higher, it becomes smaller, making it appear taller than it really is when people look at it from below. Actors Vin Diesel and Dwayne Johnson have a clause in their movie contracts stating that they cannot be defeated or placed in a position where it appears that they were beaten. This caused a scene in the movie Fast and Furious 8 to be changed, in which The Rock was supposed to be lying at Vin Diesel's feet, but it was altered so that he appeared sitting instead. Ciabatta is not a traditional Italian bread. It was actually created in the 1980s as a response to the growing popularity of baguettes. A retired construction worker set out to build a replica of the Stonehenge monument in his yard without using modern technology, only simple wooden mechanisms. All of this was done to prove that the monument does not have a paranormal origin. BMX cyclist Matt Hoffman has suffered more than 100 concussions and has undergone 16 surgeries for injuries during his career. He is known for his toughness and unusual tolerance for pain. There is a species of soft-shelled sea turtle that spends 95% of its life buried under river sand without moving. It only comes to the surface twice a day to breathe. There is an altar in the city of Bangkok, Thailand, that is dedicated to an ancient beggar. One day, a man prayed at this altar and won the lottery, so as a reward, he brought dancers to the place. This practice became a tradition, which has caused the site to always be full of dancers. The toothpaste that Mr. Bucket, Charlie's father in the movie Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, is working on is called Smilex. It is the same name as the substance the Joker uses to poison the city of Gotham in the movie Batman from 1989, also directed by Tim Burton. In 2004, Robert Downey Jr. recorded an album of original songs and covers called The Futurist. But since it was not very well received by critics, he decided to focus on acting again. There are nuclear power plants that are so safe, they can even withstand a commercial airplane crashing into them without releasing radioactive substances. The compound capsaicin, which gives chili peppers their spicy sensation, does not actually damage the taste buds or the stomach, and it has been discovered that it can even have benefits for the digestive system. It can even help prevent and heal stomach ulcers. With a runtime of 2 hours and 20 minutes, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is, to date, the longest animated movie produced in the United States. In addition, it is the animated film that has involved the most people. There were around 1,000 people involved in its production. During the Battle of Moscow in the Second World War, the annual military parade commemorating the revolution in the Soviet Union was carried out. All of this happened despite German troops being less than approximately 31 miles from the city. The soldiers who participated paraded and then went directly to battle. The most expensive Rolls-Royce car ever built to date is the coach-built Boat Tail 2, priced at $30 million, of which only 3 units will be produced. Version 1 was made especially for Beyoncé and Jay-Z, and building each one takes nearly 4 years. According to Matt Groening, The Simpsons would be in their 1010 season when Fry was unfrozen in Futurama in the year 2999. When he made this joke, The Simpsons were only in their 10th season. Recently, the series was renewed for seasons 35 and 36. You can make your own homemade Gatorade by adding a bit of salt to a powdered drink such as Tang or Kool-Aid with water. It is not the same recipe, but it contains the same amount of electrolytes. The actor Robin Williams appeared in what could be considered one of the first podcasts ever. In 2000, he hosted an internet-exclusive show in which he chatted with famous friends such as Jeff Bridges and Whoopi Goldberg. According to a study, crows show the ability of analogical reasoning. This means they can solve problems such as fish is to water as bird is to air. This type of reasoning emerges in humans between the ages of 3 and 4 years old. In the final track of Pink Floyd's album Atom Heart Mother, a dripping sink can be heard at the end, which on the vinyl edition is recorded in such a way that the needle returns to the previous position and the dripping sound plays continuously until the record is removed. If a bald eagle loses a feather on one wing, it will also lose the same feather on the other wing. This is done to maintain balance and avoid affecting its ability to fly. A software company called Pitstop PC once included a $1,000 prize hidden in the terms and conditions text that most computer programs have, just to see if anyone would read it. It was not until 5 months later and 3,000 sales that someone finally claimed the prize. The writer Scott Fitzgerald never knew of his success. 2 years after his death, 155,000 copies of his book, The Great Gatsby, were sent to soldiers during the Second World War, greatly increasing its popularity. To this day, it still sells around 500,000 copies a year. What actually makes water a good conductor of electrical energy are the impurities it contains, such as minerals. By itself, water would not be able to conduct electricity. There are several gemstones that are more valuable and harder to obtain than diamonds, such as tanzanite, which can only be found in one region on the slopes of Mount Kilimanjaro, or painite, which is considered the rarest gemstone in the world, with fewer than 1,000 specimens ever found. Lake Kivu, located in Rwanda, is one of only 3 known lakes in the world capable of a limnic eruption, which are events where carbon dioxide is suddenly released, killing all animals and people nearby. It is believed this occurs every 1,000 years. More than 2 million people currently live near this lake. The Russian fighter jet Sukhoi Su-34 is so large that the pilots can lie down to rest inside, and it is also equipped with a kitchen station and a bathroom. According to research, people whose initials form an insult or who have an unusual name that can lead to ridicule tend to have a shorter life expectancy. This may be due to the psychological stress caused by bullying from childhood. The German Hans Scharf was the most effective interrogator of the Second World War, who, instead of using traditional force methods, would befriend prisoners. He took them to the movies or on picnics until he obtained the information. Thanks to his peaceful methods, he was not persecuted after the war. In the late 1990s, there was a television show in Russia called The Interception, in which contestants had to steal a car. If they succeeded without being caught by the police and in less than 35 minutes, they were given the car. But if they failed, they were arrested. There are twice as many people of Scottish descent living in the United States and in Canada as there are in Scotland itself today. The 1928 Mickey Mouse version Steamboat Willie is set to enter the public domain in 2024. This means that anyone will be able to adapt this character without having to pay Disney, as long as certain required conditions are met. Washing your hands with hot water does not remove more bacteria than washing them with cold water, as some people believe. Water temperature only destroys bacteria when it reaches the boiling point. The hydrogen contained in the core of the planet Saturn is so dense that it becomes metal. It is believed that metallic hydrogen could exist as a liquid rather than a solid under high temperature conditions. Scientists have attempted to create it on planet Earth many times, but have not succeeded. Many cereals and other products, such as potato chips and butters, contain an ingredient called butylated hydroxytoluene that allows them to retain color, flavor, and aroma. This same compound is called additive AO29, and oil companies use it as a stabilizer in hydraulic fluids, turbine oils, and jet fuel, meaning your cereal shares an ingredient with airplane fuel. Beethoven composed many of his most popular pieces with the intention that they be played faster, including the Fifth Symphony, unlike how they are commonly performed today. But since many professional orchestras had trouble playing them, they slowed the tempo instead. In Belgium, voting is mandatory, and citizens are automatically registered to do so. More than 90% of the population goes to vote to avoid fines. Platypuses use electroreception to hunt their food. They can perceive the weak electrical impulses generated by the muscles of animals as they move. In the 17th century, the Catholic Church declared that beavers were fish. This was so that the prohibition on eating meat during the Lenten season would not apply to these animals, and people could eat them when there was a shortage of fish. Unregistered gold miners in Mongolia who do not have permits are commonly known as ninja miners, because of the special container they carry on their backs, which looks like a shell from the Ninja Turtles. The Roman Colosseum is named after a bronze statue called the Colossus of Nero that stood near the entrance. This statue was almost as large as the Statue of Liberty. It is believed to have been destroyed in the 5th or 6th century, and its base still existed until 1936. There is a 16-story building in Osaka, Japan, through which a highway passes on the 5th, 6th, and 7th floors. When the highway was being built, an agreement could not be reached over acquiring the land, and the owners wanted to build the building, so an arrangement was made to construct both. The flesh of salmon is pink because of their specific diet of crustaceans. However, this color is not present in salmon raised on special farms, so many producers usually add a special dye to their feed to achieve this particular shade. When NASA's Space Shuttle program was in operation, it cost $54,500 per pound to transport something into space, whereas now, with SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket, this cost has been reduced to $1,234 per pound. In the movie Django Unchained, there is an explosion with dynamite in one scene. This is an error, since the story of the movie takes place in 1858, and dynamite would not be invented by Alfred Nobel until 1866. Human gas is, in a way, similar to fingerprints, since its bacterial composition is unique to each person. For this reason, it does not bother you to smell your own gas as much as that of others. The lead singer of the band Red Hot Chili Peppers saved a baby's life while filming an episode of Carpool Karaoke for James Corden's show. After stopping to do a dance battle that did not make it into the final cut, they took a break, and a woman came out asking for help because her baby could not breathe. So he performed cardiopulmonary resuscitation and revived the baby until the ambulance arrived. In 2013, a man got a tattoo with the word Netflix and tweeted it to the company. Shortly afterward, they replied and gave him 1 year of service. The true cause of Mozart's death is not known with certainty. According to researchers, there may be 118 possible causes, ranging from influenza to mercury poisoning. In 2004, a new species of monkey was discovered in Bolivia and was named the Golden Palace monkey. This happened because an auction was held to decide the name, and the online casino Golden Palace paid $650,000, which were used to support Madidi National Park, where this species lives. NFL players are nearly 4 times more likely to suffer from Alzheimer's and Parkinson's during their lives than the average person. This is due to the impacts they receive while practicing the sport, which can cause many microconcussions. In early versions of the script for the movie Star Wars, some stormtroopers carried lightsabers, and there were also female stormtroopers, but this was quickly discarded. These ideas were later revisited in the 2015 movie The Force Awakens with the character Captain Phasma. Actor Liam Neeson claimed that he was already too old to make action movies when he was offered the lead role in the movie Taken, describing his part as a guy who beats up half of Europe to find his daughter. Even so, he accepted it, and it later became a success and a trilogy. Cellophane is not actually made of plastic. It is completely made of cellulose, which means it can degrade in as little as 90 days if left in the soil. Soccer player Cristiano Ronaldo became the first person to reach a total of 500 million followers on Instagram in November 2022. In the same month, he also became the first soccer player to score a goal in 5 different World Cups. There is a store in Canada called Child's Own Studio, where children's drawings are turned into real fabric toys, including all their details. According to a study from 1994, women who take birth control pills blink on average 32% more often than those who do not. The cause of this is unknown. Once, the United States Postal Service sent a letter to the band The Postal Service asking them to change their name. But after negotiations, they were allowed to keep it in exchange for performing at the annual Mail Carriers Conference. Isaac Newton was the first person to propose that planet Earth was not a perfect sphere. It is an oblate spheroid, flattened at the poles and bulging at the equator. From the center of the Earth, sea level is approximately 13 miles higher at the equator than at the poles. The son of the writer J.R.R. Tolkien, Christopher Tolkien, has stated several times that he hates the movies The Lord of the Rings, adaptations of his father's books. For every human in the world, there are around 200 million insects. And in total, the insect population on the planet is 10 trillion, which is a 1 followed by 18 zeros. In 1503, Christopher Columbus became stranded in Jamaica along with his crew while sailing. Knowing that a lunar eclipse was approaching, he warned the local people that if they did not feed them, he would make the moon disappear. The Mediterranean myth of the Cyclops has been theorized to have originated because pygmy elephant skeletons were found, whose skull is only about twice the size of a human one, and whose central nasal cavity can easily be mistaken for the cavity of a single giant eye. Despite the First World War having ended more than 100 years ago, in France, more than approximately 992 short tons of unexploded ammunition are still recovered each year in regions where battles took place. Even though we refer to zero gravity when astronauts are floating in space, gravity is actually present everywhere in the universe. It is just that in outer space, the gravitational force is much weaker, which is why it appears as if there is none. During the Napoleonic Wars at the beginning of the 19th century, the capital of Portugal was moved for 15 years to Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. More bacteria can develop in a neatly made bed with tightly stretched sheets than in an unmade bed. This is because when sheets are uncovered, they are exposed to more air and do not retain heat or moisture, making it harder for bacteria to reproduce. The country of India recognizes dolphins as non-human persons and is one of 4 countries where the import and export of cetaceans, such as whales or narwhals for entertainment purposes, is prohibited. All citizens of Great Britain have to pay a television license each year, equivalent to $230 as a tax. This is to support the BBC, the public television channel that does not have advertising in its programming. Maple syrup contains more calcium than milk and more potassium than bananas. It is also a good source of minerals, such as magnesium, phosphorus, zinc, and iron. In Canada, they make a maple syrup candy by pouring it onto snow and rolling it onto a popsicle stick. In 1959, the 3-point seat belt was invented by the company Volvo. Instead of keeping the patent exclusive to make more money, they decided to release it so any manufacturer could use it. This same design is so effective that it is still used today. More than 3,000 years ago, before any method existed to observe microorganisms, the Roman scholar Marcus Varro described bacteria by stating that they were tiny creatures that enter the body through the mouth or nose and cause disease. More than 1,500 years had to pass before his theory was finally confirmed. Miley Cyrus's first job was cleaning the stage after her father's concerts. The country singer Billy Ray Cyrus paid her $10 per concert, and what she mostly had to do was pick up the underwear that fans threw. Abraham Lincoln was considered ugly, and he himself thought so as well. Once, when he was accused of being dishonest or two-faced, his response was, "If I had 2 faces, do you think I would be wearing this one?" Scientists discovered fossils of pygmy Tyrannosaurus rex that lived for years in the Arctic region toward the end of the Cretaceous period. They were about half the size of the large T-Rex. Because of their position on the planet, Argentina and Chile are the only 2 countries where, in theory, you could dig straight down and reach China, although in practice this would be very difficult. If the sun were the size of a basketball in a scale model of the universe, the nearest star would be another basketball approximately 5,000 miles away. Chef Anthony Bourdain sometimes did not mention the names of the restaurants or places he visited while filming. He did this to prevent them from becoming tourist attractions and being ruined. In the 1957 movie 12 Angry Men, the director gradually changed the focal length of the lens as the film progressed. This was done to create a growing sense of claustrophobia in the viewer. There is an alarm clock called clocky that has wheels and rolls away when it starts ringing, forcing you to get out of bed to turn it off. There is also an extreme alarm that requires you to shoot at a target to silence it. In reality, Walt Disney did not draw Mickey Mouse. He only came up with the concept and provided the voice for the character. The artist and animator who drew him was Ub Iwerks. The first person to use fingerprints on contracts was William Herschel II, who was the son of John Herschel, considered one of the inventors of photography, and also the grandson of William Herschel, the astronomer who discovered the planet Uranus. At the Barbican Art Centre in London, there is an exhibition room called the Rain Room that has sensors causing water to fall throughout the room, simulating a storm, except exactly where you are walking, so the people who enter do not get wet. Deadpool forgets his weapons in a suitcase when he goes to fight the most important battle of his first movie. This happened because $7 million were cut from the filming budget, so the action scene in which they were going to be used had to be discarded. The real reason McDonald's does not serve breakfast all day is because the temperature required for the grills to cook meat is different from the temperature needed to cook eggs, which would cause production problems. The logo of the United States Cyber Command contains a nearly imperceptible 32-character code that is encoded with the 128-bit MD5 algorithm, and when decoded, it spells out the command's motto. The website Nissan.com does not belong to the automobile company. It belongs to a person named Uzi Nissan, with whom the company has had a legal battle since 1999. Currently, Nissan's official website is nissanglobal.com, and in different countries, it uses local web domains. The magician David Copperfield performs his show at the MGM Hotel in Las Vegas 15 times a week, twice daily and 3 times on Saturdays, and he has been doing so for 20 uninterrupted years. Some Atari programmers went to the company president in the 1970s to ask for royalties for their work and for their names to be included on the boxes. When their offer was rejected, they quit and formed their own video game company, which would become Activision, one of the most important video game companies to date. The founder of Ford Automobiles, Henry Ford, tried to end the First World War by undertaking what he called a peace voyage to Europe in 1915, along with pacifists and reporters. The mission cost $500,000, and when he arrived, he was received by only 8 people. After this, he canceled the stops he had planned in other cities and returned home instead. In 2009, Burger King Japan sold a promotional Windows 7 Whopper hamburger that had 7 meat patties. It cost 777 yen for the first customers of the day who bought it, and was only available for 7 days. The tennis player Richard Norris Williams was a survivor of the sinking of the Titanic, where his legs were so badly damaged that doctors said they could not be saved. However, he refused to accept this, and just a few months later, he was already competing at the Wimbledon Championships, a tournament he would eventually win. The co-director of the Disney movie Aladdin, John Musker, revealed that the song A Whole New World was inspired by the scene in the movie Superman, in which Superman takes Lois Lane on a flying date in a similar way to the scene in the Aladdin song. Harrison Ford had already decided to abandon his acting career during his early years because he only landed small roles and could not afford to support his family, so he chose to become a carpenter instead. During a carpentry job in 1972, he met George Lucas, who invited him to work on the movie American Graffiti, and shortly afterward considered him for the role of Han Solo in Star Wars. During a period of famine in Germany, it was observed that sick children recovered when wheat was scarce, and when it became available again, they fell ill once more. This helped lead to the discovery of celiac disease, which is the negative reaction that occurs when consuming gluten, something that affects many people. In China, making noise while eating and even burping is seen positively and can be a way to show gratitude to the person who prepared the food. On the other hand, finishing everything on your plate is seen as disrespectful, as it suggests that you are not satisfied. The astronomer Fritz Zwicky proposed in a publication from 1961 that we should detonate nuclear bombs on the sun in order to enable interstellar travel and move through the galaxy. The explosions would alter the sun's path through space, and the gravitational force would drag us along with it. There are 21 different species of fish that can be categorized and sold as sardines, and companies are not required to specify on labels which species they contain. During the First Gulf War, the British Broadcasting Corporation banned songs that had the word bang in the title, since it resembled the onomatopoeia of a gunshot. There are at least 100 episodes of the series Doctor Who, in which the tape they restored on was reused, causing the originals to be lost forever. Only some VHS recordings made by people recording their television sets remain. Students of the famous 17th century Dutch painter Rembrandt used to play a prank on him in which they painted coins on the floor to watch him bend down to pick them up, since, thanks to the excellent technique he taught them, they looked very realistic. Taylor Swift has mentioned that she does not read musical notation because she does not like the technical side of music. Among other musicians who do not know how or do not like to read musical notes are Paul McCartney and all the Beatles, Jimi Hendrix, Prince, Slash, Bob Dylan, and Elvis Presley, among others. The decision to use classical music in the iconic soundtrack of the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey was made by Stanley Kubrick at the last minute during post-production. The composer who had been hired did not find out that all of his music had been replaced until he attended the premiere. Evidence was found that Native Americans managed to defend themselves against an attempted invasion by 50 Vikings who arrived on the island of Newfoundland in Canada in 985. Nearby is believed to be the only settlement the Vikings established in the Americas outside of Greenland. In 2008, a bank robber managed to create a distraction on the street by posting job vacancy ads on the internet, causing construction workers to dress just like him, which allowed him to escape with the loot. If you dove 20,000 leagues under the sea, like the title of Jules Verne's book, you would not only reach the bottom of the ocean, but you would pass through the entire Earth and reach halfway to the moon. 1 league is equivalent to approximately 3.4 miles, so the distance would be approximately 68,000 miles in total. The title of the book, of course, refers to the distance traveled at sea, not the depth. At the 2012 World Shooting Championship, one of the gold medal winners was Maria Dmitrienko from Kazakhstan. At the award ceremony, the national anthem of that country was not available, so it was downloaded from YouTube and played. They did not realize it was the parody version from the movie Borat. The winner had to listen to it all the way through. Alcatraz prison was one of the few prisons that offered hot water showers to inmates. This was not for their comfort, but so they would become accustomed to warmer temperatures, making it impossible for them to swim in the cold waters surrounding the island if they attempted to escape. The winner of the Tour de France has tested positive for doping 40 times over the past 53 years. When they are discovered, they are disqualified. The most recent was Alberto Contador in 2007, 2009, and 2010. Sony holds the record for the largest CRT television ever made. The PVM 4300 was built in 1989 and measured 43 inches, weighed approximately 440 pounds, and was sold at a price of $40,000. After years of being only a legend among retro television enthusiasts, the last known unit was located in Osaka, Japan, by the YouTuber ShankMods, who imported it to the United States and restored it. Ancient Greeks and Romans believed that the basil plant could only grow if you shouted and cursed while planting the seeds. The city that has competed the most times to host the Olympic Games without ever winning is Detroit, United States. Between 1940 and 1972, it tried 9 times but was not selected. The Tomorrowland section of the Disney World theme park, built in 1955, was designed to look like the year 1986, which was considered the distant future. But in 1975, they had to change the attraction Journey to the Moon to Mission to Mars, since the moon landing had already happened and it no longer counted as something from the future. The Nazca civilization of Peru, which existed more than 1,000 years ago, collapsed and disappeared in a short period of time. It is believed this was due to deforestation carried out to make way for agriculture, which triggered severe flooding. The 1999 movie Office Space made red staplers popular. Most office supply stores did not carry this color, and after the movie's release, demand increased, forcing manufacturers to produce them. The one that appears in the movie had been specially painted. Hawaii used to be called the Sandwich Islands, in honor of the 4th Earl of Sandwich. This name remained until the decade of the 1840s, when the local name Hawaii gradually began to prevail. No one knows exactly what the word Hawaii means. For some locals, it means homeland, or may be related to a deity. The first Mortal Kombat game was created by only 4 people in 10 months. It was originally going to be called Dragon Attack after a Queen song. Although the violence in the game was initially just a technical joke, It ended up completely changing the industry and led to hearings in the United States Congress that resulted in the creation of the video game rating system. Actress Rachel McAdams lied about being allergic to horsehair to get a role in the movie You Should Love. It was not until they were filming with horses that her face swelled up so much that she could not see. The stadium of the American football team Dallas Cowboys, built in 2009 and with a capacity of 80,000 people, can use more electrical energy in a single day than the entire country of Liberia. The best-selling book in 1981 was a guide on how to solve a Rubik's Cube that had just been released and was the best-selling product of the year. Among the list of best-selling books, many were guides for solving this cube. There is no official record that mentions the story in which an apple fell on Isaac Newton's head, inspiring him to write the theory of universal gravitation in 1666. In reality, he simply observed apples falling from trees while he was in the gardens of his family home and wondered why they always fell toward the center of the earth. A German artist organized a special day in 2006 for all humans to jump at the same time, which, according to him, would cause the Earth to shift its orbit and be saved from climate change. Since then, every July 20th is celebrated as International Jump to Save the World Day. In a soccer match between Iran and Denmark, a player from Iran confused the sound of a whistle from the crowd with the referee's signal for the end of the first half. So he picked up the ball with his hands inside the penalty area, and the referee had to call it. The Danish player who took the penalty realized what had happened and deliberately missed the shot as an act of fair play. In the end, Denmark lost 1-0. In 1961, when the Soviets gifted Jacqueline Kennedy a puppy named Pushinka, the daughter of a dog that had traveled to space, the Secret Service examined her for hours looking for implanted microphones. The first movie to feature digital water with simulated physics was Ants in 1998. Before this, digital fluid effects were modeled frame by frame. Detailed studies of fluid dynamics to achieve this were the work of scientists at the Los Alamos National Laboratory in New Mexico, United States. By the year 2004, the number of transistors that had been produced surpassed the number of grains of rice that had been harvested throughout all of history, a figure that has multiplied since then. Today, around 120,000 transistors can be purchased for the same price as a single grain of rice. The first telephones did not have a ringer or a system to hang up. Callers had to shout to get the attention of the person on the other end until someone noticed and picked up the receiver. The Ryugyong Hotel in Pyongyang, the capital of North Korea, was the tallest empty building in the world from 1992 until 2014, when the Golden Finance 117 building was constructed in Tianjin, China, which to this day is the tallest unoccupied building at approximately 1,959 feet. Studies have been conducted that showed that most exercise machines in gyms, such as treadmills, display an incorrect number of calories burned with an overestimated margin of up to 80%. This happens because mass, metabolism, and personalized aerobic condition are not taken into account. They are only based on average measurements. After the South Korean soccer player An Jung-hwan scored the goal that eliminated Italy from the 2002 World Cup, his contract was canceled by the Italian team Perugia, where he was playing. He had to move to another team. The Greek philosopher Socrates believed that reading was the dumbest way to learn things. For him, the best way was to talk face-to-face, hold debates, and practice things directly. No text written by him is known, and everything we know about his philosophy comes from biographers who lived during the same period. The largest film studio in the world is located in Morocco and consists mainly of mountains and desert. It has been used for movies such as The Mummy and Gladiator. In addition, it has become a favorite tourist destination since many movie sets have been preserved. To film the movie Babe, the Brave Little Pig, 48 different piglets were used, since they could only work for a few weeks before growing too large for the role. Animatronics and digital effects were used to synchronize the dialogue and create the illusion that there was only one pig and not 48 different ones. In 2011, a 14-year-old amateur astronomer from Canada proved for the first time that the planet Jupiter is bright enough to cast a shadow on Earth. All Oscar winners, before accepting the award, must sign a contract stating that if they want to sell the statuette, they are required to offer it first to the Academy in exchange for $1. Despite this, it is estimated that more than 150 of these awards have been sold privately. The largest car companies in the world are Volkswagen, Toyota, and Mercedes-Benz. However, if they are measured by market capitalization, meaning the total value of their shares, then Tesla is number one, surpassing Toyota by more than double, which would be in second place. The Cartier crash watch, manufactured in 1967, which looks like a watch painted by Dali, was actually inspired by a real car accident. That is how a watch ended up after being exposed to the heat of a vehicle fire. Although no further details are known and it is only speculation, its asymmetric design became an icon for collectors. Some special editions can sell for more than $100,000. Scientists have discovered that the perception of time varies across species depending on their metabolic rate and mass. Smaller animals can respond more quickly to visual stimuli because they can perceive movements as slower. The country of Haiti dissolved its armed forces in 1996 due to the multiple coups that had occurred in previous decades, creating a civilian force instead. Since 2017, Haiti has once again had an army. Once, a man who had a condition that made him believe he was living in a reality show about his own life, like in the movie The Truman Show, traveled to New York City solely to verify whether the Twin Towers were truly gone, since he believed their destruction had been an elaborate staging created just for him. This aligns with what Dr. Joel Gold describes in a book he writes about this condition, known as Truman Syndrome. The giant bucket wheel excavator, Bagger 293, built in Germany, is the heaviest land machine ever constructed. More than approximately 15,432 short tons and around 315 feet tall. It can move up to approximately 313,908 cubic yards of earth per day. Its movement is so slow that it requires continuous electricity and a crew that walks alongside it. Despite its size, it only requires 5 people to operate. The story of the hysteria among people supposedly caused by Orson Welles when he read The War of the Worlds on the radio in 1938 is actually a myth created by newspapers so that readers would view the influence of radio negatively, as it was becoming increasingly popular. When you cook in a cast iron skillet, the amount of iron in the food being prepared can increase by 850%. There is a jellyfish that is longer than a blue whale. It is called the Arctic lion's mane jellyfish, and its tentacles can reach lengths of up to 121 feet. They live in the Arctic Ocean and in the northern Atlantic Ocean. The actor Brad Pitt appears for 2 seconds in the movie Deadpool 2. In exchange for his performance, he received a Starbucks coffee as payment, with the condition that it be delivered personally by Ryan Reynolds, who played Deadpool. Some years later, Reynolds returned the favor by appearing in Bullet Train. When the movie Babylon was being planned, actress Emma Stone had been chosen for the lead role based on the real-life actress Clara Bow, but she had to leave because filming was delayed. Shortly afterward, Margot Robbie took her place, and the story was changed to make it a role less closely tied to reality. On average, a bottle of beer produced and purchased in Australia costs 333% more than a bottle of beer produced and purchased in Germany. At the beginning of the song Roxanne by the band The Police, a strange chord played on a piano and a laugh can be heard. In reality, this sound came from when the band's vocalist, Sting, sat down on a nearby piano and it was recorded. After hearing it, he decided to leave it in the final mix because he found it funny. According to ophthalmology associations, taking regular breaks from screens can reduce eye strain, improve concentration, and lower stress levels. They recommend following the 20-20-20 rule. Every 20 minutes of screen time, look at something that is 20 feet away for 20 seconds. 20 feet is approximately 6.7 yards. As an additional fact, Liberia and Burma are already completing the change from the imperial system to the metric system, so only the United States will continue measuring things in feet. The Olympic sport considered the most boring of all was the distance diving event at the 1904 Olympic Games, where competitors had to jump into the pool with all their strength but could not move after entering the water. They had to remain motionless, and whoever traveled the farthest with the initial momentum won. Usually, the heavier competitors won. By 1920, this event had already lost popularity and was forgotten. The painter Vincent van Gogh used to paint over his own paintings when he could not afford materials for a new one, and this was discovered recently when his works were analyzed using X-ray technology. After the Second World War, it was observed that natives of remote Pacific islands began to imitate soldiers with weapons made of wood and built airplanes out of tree branches. They did this in the hope that airplanes would once again fly overhead and drop supplies as they had years earlier, believing they were gifts from their ancestors. Toyota sold a version of the GT86 car in Japan that had plastic bumpers, basic rims, and did not have air conditioning or a screen. It cost $2,000 less. It was a special version for tuning enthusiasts so they could discard the cheaper parts and install customized ones. The pirate ship that appears in the movie The Goonies was built without the child actors seeing it. This was done so they could film their first reaction to it. However, when they finally saw it, they were so surprised that they started swearing. So the shot could not be used and they had to film an acted reaction. Pepsi ran a campaign in which people were asked to taste Coca-Cola and Pepsi in cups without knowing which was which, showing that more people chose Pepsi. But according to research, people tend to choose the sweeter option at first. However, if they drink an entire can, they prefer the less sweet option. The actor Ben Affleck is banned for life from entering and gambling at the Hard Rock Casino in Las Vegas because one day he was caught counting cards, a trick known for cheating at blackjack. The largest painting on display at the Louvre Museum in Paris, and one of the largest in the world, is The Wedding at Cana by the painter Paolo Veronese, finished in 1563 and measuring approximately 22 by 32.5 feet. It is located in the same room as the Mona Lisa, on the opposite wall, and since almost everyone who enters that room goes to see Leonardo da Vinci's painting, they usually ignore The Wedding at Cana despite its size. The millionaire Wellington Burt, who died in 1919, left one of the strangest wills of all time. He forbade any inheritance to his children and grandchildren, and it was not until the year 2011 that 12 descendants inherited $110 million. When the animated movie Thumbelina from 1994 was first shown to a test audience by the studio Warner Brothers, it was not well received. They later ran another test showing the same movie but with the Disney logo at the beginning, and this time, it was successful. The method originally used to manufacture metal pellets or shot consisted of dropping molten lead from the top of a tower through a metal mesh into a well filled with water, which caused nearly perfect spheres to form and cool thanks to surface tension. The Aston Martin Lagonda of 1976 was the first mass-produced automobile to incorporate a fully digital instrument panel. There was one model with calculator-like liquid crystal displays and another with cathode ray tube displays, a technology taken from the F-15 Eagle jet. Even so, many customers reported that it failed too often, so it was not adopted in other cars. According to two independent studies that were conducted, randomly promoting people within a company to management positions turns out to be more effective than traditional methods such as experience or merit. There is a garden near Google's headquarters where statues represent each different version of the Android operating system and correspond to the thematic name of each version. The Northern Lights have a similar phenomenon that occurs in the southern hemisphere called the aurora australis, and it happens for the same reason, when particles from the sun collide with gases in the atmosphere, producing unusual colored light effects. In the 11th century, the Persian mathematician al-Biruni calculated the radius of the Earth with great precision and noted that between Europe and Asia there must exist a large, still unknown landmass to balance the planet. Although he did not speak directly about America, his geographic reasoning anticipated its existence centuries before others, such as Christopher Columbus, did. Actor Bryan Cranston had only acted in some commercials and small roles since the early 1980s. His first major role did not come until the series Malcolm in the Middle, when he was 44 years old. The country with the highest average internet speed is Singapore, followed by South Korea, Monaco, and Romania, while in Latin America, the fastest internet is found in Chile. There are shops in Japan where you can create a replica of yourself made of gummy candy, similar to gummy bears, specially intended as a gift for your partner on February 14th. To make it, they have to scan you and create a mold. Journalists in some English-speaking countries have to learn a type of shorthand writing called T-line, which can combine symbols to write faster, allowing them to take notes at speeds of up to 150 words per minute. In an area of the Namib Desert, grass circles known as fairy circles form, which were long considered a mystery. But it was recently discovered that they form due to the distribution of water when it rains, which concentrates in circular patterns and is then used by nearby plants. For the first Superman movie, the producers wanted actor Christopher Reeve to wear a special suit with fake muscles underneath his costume, but he refused. Instead, he began a regimen to increase his muscle mass that caused him to gain 31 pounds. He became so strong that they had to reshoot many scenes that had already been filmed. There is a law in India that requires doctors to write everything in clear capital letters. This is to avoid mistakes that could put people's health at risk. Portobello mushrooms are actually just regular mushrooms, only larger. The term was created in 1980 as a marketing campaign to sell more of them. Before that, nobody bought them. In one of the oldest known books on tactics to win at chess from 1561, among the advice given was to play with your back to the sun so your opponent would be dazzled. And if playing at night, they advised casting your shadow over the board so your opponent could not see the moves. Extremely good advice. According to a myth, the Roman Emperor Caligula, famous for being extremely eccentric, once declared war on Neptune, the god of the sea, and ordered 10,000 soldiers to go to a coast, attack the water with swords, and then collect seashells as a sign of victory. However, it is believed that this was a legend invented by his detractors. Several civilizations saw the shape of a rabbit on the moon since ancient times. The Aztecs in the legend of the Five Suns, when the god Tecutitl becomes the moon as punishment. In China, the jade rabbit that prepares the elixir of immortality. And in India, the god Indra rewards the lunar rabbit for its selfless sacrifice. The company Pantone created a special purple color in honor of the musician Prince called Love Symbol No. 2, based on the color of the piano he made with Yamaha in 2016. At the first concert of the band Weezer, they were the opening act for actor Keanu Reeves, specifically for the band Dogstar, in which Reeves played bass. In the movie Your Name, there is an orange GameCube console in the game room. This color was exclusive to Japan. In the Americas, the launch color was purple. If you took a spoonful of a neutron star and brought it to Earth, it would weigh more than 2 billion pounds, or the equivalent of Mount Everest. This is due to the extremely high density of its matter. The director of the series House of the Dragon, Greg Yaitanes, admitted that he was inspired by the movie How to Train Your Dragon to create the cinematography for one of the battles that occur in the first season. On average, half of service dogs fail training. Because of this, in South Korea, they attempted to clone dogs that passed to see if they could improve the rate, and it was shown that they could. Cloned dogs had a higher chance of passing. The actress Zooey Deschanel nearly turned down the offer to star in the series New Girl because she was offered a guest role in the 7th season of The Office. During Michael Jackson's performance at the Brit Awards in 1996, the lead singer of the English band Pulp, Jarvis Cocker, walked onto the stage and made mocking gestures because he disagreed with the staging that presented Jackson as a messianic figure. The incident dominated all the tabloids in the United Kingdom. In 1989, the company Nike made a commercial in which they showed people from the Samburu tribe wearing the brand's sneakers, and one of them speaks, and the famous slogan, "Just do it," appears in the subtitles as if he were saying it. Shortly afterward, an anthropologist saw the commercial and contacted the company, because what they were actually saying was, "I do not want these, give me bigger shoes." The most common banknote in the world is the $100 bill. It is estimated that there are more than 8,200,000,000 of these bills in circulation worldwide. Until 2015, the most common one was the $1 bill. Centuries ago, the Irish respected their dogs so much that if a warrior earned the loyalty of a hunting hound, he was given the prefix CU, which meant hound, added before his own name to indicate to others that he had been worthy of earning the respect and loyalty of one of these dogs. The Indian pipe plant is one of the few plants that does not contain chlorophyll, so it does not perform photosynthesis. It feeds on a parasitic fungus that takes its nutrients from other trees that do have chlorophyll. The actor George Lazenby lied in order to obtain the role of James Bond in the movie On Her Majesty's Secret Service from 1969. He told the producers that he had worked in many films that he had actually invented. Because the special editions released from the first Star Wars movie were altered at the request of George Lucas, adding digital effects, a group of fans who wanted the original 1977 experience carried out a direct restoration from copies of approximately 1.38 inches. They were cleaned frame by frame and scanned in 4K as a work of cinematic preservation that almost borders on obsessive. In Queensland, Australia, it is strictly forbidden to keep rabbits as pets because they are considered invasive species that could ruin the ecosystem. However, there are some exceptions. You only have to prove that you are a scientist or a magician to be given a special permit. In the Avatar movies, the Na'vi have 4 fingers and are left-handed, while the Avatars have 5 fingers and are right-handed. This was decided during the production of the first movie because the actress Zoe Saldana is left-handed, so she would not look out of place using a bow and arrow compared to the other characters. The director James Cameron is also left-handed. People do not agree on what color a tennis ball really is. According to surveys, 52% say they are green, 42% say they are yellow, and the remaining 6% say they are a different color. The inventor of the laser, Gordon Gould, had to fight with the patent office and with laser manufacturers for 38 years over ownership of his invention, until he was finally recognized. When the largest diamond in the world was transported from Africa to England in 1906, the steamship journey attracted attention, but was only a decoy. The real diamond was sent by mail in a cardboard box. In 2004, the SQL Slammer computer worm almost shut down internet traffic worldwide for at least 15 minutes. Once it infected a server, it multiplied millions of times and sent copies to internet protocol addresses. Its creator has not been identified to this day. The resume, or resume, is a document a person uses to present their background, skills, and achievements. Its creation is attributed to Leonardo da Vinci, who wrote one in 1482 to a potential employer. It is usually shorter than a curriculum vitae. Only 6 signatures of William Shakespeare are believed to be original, even though his name is spelled differently in all of them, and none matches how it is written today. Of the 20 common openings in chess, the one considered the worst of all is the Barnes opening, whose disadvantages include controlling only one central square, exposing the king, and hindering the development of the knight. During an exploration carried out in the ruins of the city of Pompeii, which was destroyed by the volcano Vesuvius in the 1st century, researchers found a restaurant menu, and one of the dishes was giraffe meat. Microwave popcorn bags do not contain any special material. You can make your own microwave popcorn by putting corn kernels in a brown paper bag. The Italian city of Naples has a deoxyribonucleic acid database of the dogs that live there. This way, if waste from one of them is found on the street, they can track down its human and issue a fine that can reach the equivalent of $650. The cartoon Tom and Jerry is named after a Christmas cocktail that was invented in the 1820s, which is a variation of eggnog with added brandy and rum. The oldest movie with a recorded copyright that has survived to this day is Fred Ott's Sneeze from 1894, produced by Thomas Edison's company, in which one of his assistants sneezes. It only lasts 5 seconds. The first recorded worker strike occurred in ancient Egypt around 4,000 years ago, carried out by tomb and pyramid construction workers because the food they were paid with had run out. Since it was the first time this had happened, the supervisors agreed to the demands because they did not know how to react. Octopuses are so intelligent and have such complex nervous systems that science considers them capable of feeling pain and emotions, which is why in some countries it is illegal to operate on them without using anesthesia. The average life expectancy of players in the National Football League is 55 years, compared to an average of 77 years for the population of the United States. This is due to the injuries they suffered during their careers. In the Middle Ages, Europeans used slices of hard bread called trenchers as disposable plates to hold food, and when finished, they would give them to the poor or eat them later after soaking them in sauce. Other cultures use bread as a utensil: injera in Ethiopia, roti in India, and tostadas in Mexico. 50 years ago in Japan, tuna was caught only for fun and as pet food, and it was called nekomatagi, or fish that even a cat rejects. As a tribute, the European Space Agency transmitted recordings of Stephen Hawking's voice through concentrated radio waves aimed at the black hole closest to our planet. The record for the longest time living in an airport belongs to Bayram Tepeli, a Turkish man who spent more than 9,800 days at Ataturk Airport in Istanbul. He fled his hometown to go work at the site, and when he could no longer continue his duties, he decided to stay and live there. When the airport was closed to commercial flights, he moved to another nearby one where, to this day, he has spent more than 1,800 days. In France, books are classified as an essential good, along with things such as electricity, water, and bread. A good practice for those who buy an action camera like a GoPro is to save a photo of a business card or contact information written on a piece of paper, since these are among the most commonly lost items, and this increases the chances of them being returned. In Switzerland, there are more millionaires than people registered in the government social assistance program. Sauli Niinistö, The current president of Finland was in Thailand during the 2004 tsunami. He survived only because he climbed onto a pole together with his son. Color laser printers sold in stores print a small pattern of yellow dots on every page they produce that helps identify each printer with a code. This is done to prevent them from being used to counterfeit money. The moon's atmosphere contains so little gas that it is almost a perfect vacuum, which means it could be used in the future as a potential space to carry out specialized industrial processes. However, each moon landing of the Apollo program caused this atmospheric mass to double, a modification that is irreversible. The actor Charles Chaplin was banned from the United States in 1952 due to the political themes addressed in his films. In 1972, he returned when he was awarded an honorary Oscar and received a 12-minute standing ovation, the longest in the history of the Academy. The Myers-Briggs personality test, which has become famous on the internet in recent times and uses 4 letters to define each individual's personality type, actually has no scientific basis, according to many experts. The Netherlands has a defense system that allows much of the country to be turned into an island by flooding all possible land crossings in the event of an invasion. In the first appearance of the classic Spider-Man villain Sandman, in the comic Amazing Spider-Man #4 in 1963, he was defeated using only a vacuum cleaner. Stephen King was inspired by the traditional Norwegian tale The Three Billy Goats Gruff to write his novel It. In the story, 3 goats must cross a bridge where a troll lives underneath. Instead of a simple bridge, he imagined an entire city with something monstrous beneath it, in the sewers where terror dwells. Thus, the troll became the entity It, which usually takes the form of the clown Pennywise to frighten people. A chimpanzee named Santino, who lived in a zoo in Sweden, showed behavior that had never been observed in a chimpanzee before. He collected round concrete discs and stored them in one place until days with many visitors at the zoo, and then threw them. During the time when Augustus was emperor in ancient Rome, the city reached its highest population with 1 million people, but as the empire began to decline, this number dropped. It was not until 1930 that the city of Rome again reached 1 million residents. The musicians David Bowie and George Harrison, the comedian John Cleese, the actor Alan Rickman, and the physicist Stephen Hawking are among the people who have declined a title from the British monarchy. Former United States President Herbert Hoover and his wife learned to speak Mandarin when they lived in China. They used to speak it in the White House when they did not want their private conversations to be overheard. To observe Saturn's rings, a telescope with a magnification of 25 is required, but to see them as a structure separate from the planet itself, with visible separation, a magnification of 50 is needed. If you gathered all the water on planet Earth into a single sphere, it would have an approximate diameter of 860 miles. Quite small considering the full size of the Earth. The comedian Jerry Seinfeld was offered $100 million to film the 10th season of the series Seinfeld, but the offer was declined. McDonald's McRib sandwiches can contain up to 70 different ingredients, including azodicarbonamide, an additive that is also used to produce yoga mats. In the Chinese movie called The Wandering Earth, based on the novel of the same name, when the sun begins to lose energy, a project is launched to move the Earth out of the solar system using planetary thrusters powered by fusion energy known as Earth engines. Although it was not very well known outside of China, it became one of the 20 most successful science fiction films, grossing $700 million at the box office. Classic books on ethics are 50% more likely to be stolen from bookstores than all other philosophy books. This is according to a study conducted in 2010. During the Cold War, Russia produced maps of the Arctic region of Canada that were so detailed that many vessels still use them today instead of official charts, because they are more accurate. Philadelphia cream cheese was created in New York and has never been produced in Philadelphia in its more than 140 years of history. Jellyfish inhabit all the world's oceans and have survived 5 mass extinctions over 700 million years. All of this despite not having a specialized digestive system, a central nervous system, or a respiratory system. Adult coloring books designed to relieve stress and anxiety have become fashionable in recent years, with such success that publishers were unable to keep up with demand. The first athlete to be disqualified for doping from the Olympic Games was the Swedish athlete Hans Gunnar Liljenvall in the modern pentathlon because he drank 2 beers before the shooting competition to relax, which gave him an advantage over the other athletes. In Great Britain, for a long time, television license detection vans were used to capture signals to see if someone was watching the BBC without having paid the mandatory television license for all residents. However, it is speculated that they did not actually work and were only there to encourage people to pay these licenses. The mathematician Arnold Sommerfeld holds the record for having taught the most nominees for the Nobel Prize in Mathematics. However, none of them has won. Tabula rasa, which in Latin means blank slate, was an idea popularized by the philosopher John Locke in the 17th century. He claimed that we are born without innate knowledge and that experience shapes our mind as if writing on an empty board. The expression was originally used by the Romans to describe wax tablets that had been erased for reuse. In medieval times, it was believed that church bells helped scare away lightning. But in reality, it was the opposite. More than 100 accidents involving bell ringers caused by lightning were reported in the 15th century alone. The board game Chinese checkers has nothing Chinese about it. It was invented in Germany in 1892 and was named that way for marketing reasons. It is a simplified variant of the American game Halma. We have been deceived. Fortune cookies are another thing that seems Chinese but was not invented in China. Mathematically, there can be more different combinations of chess games than atoms in the observable universe. This is known as the Shannon number and is calculated using the average number of moves in a game, which is 40, multiplied by the possible moves for each one, which on average are 30. The Empire State Building in New York, inaugurated in 1931, had many empty offices during its early years. Almost 70% of the building was unoccupied. This was due to the economic damage caused by the Great Depression of 1929. It was not until 1950 that it began to be profitable. Once, a man spent 121 days locked in a room surrounded by 40 venomous snakes in an attempt to break a Guinness record that was 107 days. When he succeeded, he was told that the record was no longer recognized because it was too dangerous. Although the most valuable company in the world today is Apple, it is far from being the most valuable of all time. That title would belong to the Dutch East India Company, which was primarily dedicated to the global spice trade and, adjusted for inflation, reached a value of up to $8 trillion. Apple has only reached 3 trillion. A trillion is a million. Dinosaurs used to have giant fleas, more than double the size of modern ones. Although they had a lower ability to jump, they therefore had to ambush their victims from trees. They went extinct at the same time as the dinosaurs. When the actor Steve Carell left the series The Office, the producers offered the position of office boss to James Gandolfini, the star of the series The Sopranos, but HBO intervened by offering him $3 million just to refuse the role. According to various studies, a correlation has been found between higher ambient temperatures around the world and worse negative behaviors in people, such as violence. The rivalry between the companies Puma and Adidas was so intense that the German town where their factories were located, Herzogenaurach, became known as the town of twisted necks, because locals would always start a conversation by first looking at the brand of shoes the other person was wearing. The London Stone is a historic monument in the city of London, whose original purpose is actually unknown, but it has appeared on city maps since the year 1100. Japan receives imported rice from the United States due to international treaties, but since it is considered low quality, it is used to send as aid to poor countries or to feed farm animals. All languages have special words or sounds that people use between sentences while they are thinking of what to say next. In Spanish, it can be or but in each language it is different. For example, in Japanese, it is this. In 2010, a man bypassed security at Newark Airport in New Jersey to give his girlfriend a goodbye kiss like in the movies. Because of him, the entire terminal had to be shut down for 7 hours. This event later became known as the Airport Romeo. Most civilizations of the ancient world had legends or myths about universal floods, except Japan, whose mythology focuses on the creation of islands, viewing rain and tsunamis as everyday forces rather than punishments. In 2019, a new section was added to the official rulebook of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Card Game Championships, establishing that any player who shows up wearing dirty clothes or who smells bad can be disqualified from the tournament. I wonder how many times something like that must have happened for them to add an official rule. The series Ted Lasso is about an American football coach who ends up coaching a soccer team in England. Despite this, according to statistics, people in Great Britain do not watch the series as much as Americans do. mainly because the Apple TV streaming service is one of the least popular in the country. Less than 10% of households have the service. Sir Robert Watson Watt, the creator of radar technology that helped in important battles during the Second World War, years later was arrested for speeding in his car. A speed control radar was used to prove it, meaning he was caught by his own invention. The writer George Orwell, famous for books such as 1984, published a guide in 1946 detailing how to prepare a good cup of tea. In New Orleans, Louisiana, there is a law that requires participants in the Mardi Gras Carnival Parade to wear a traditional mask. On the other hand, on any other day of the year, it is illegal to wear masks or costumes. Only children are allowed to do so on Halloween. The actor and singer Jeremy Renner has mentioned that his second job is buying and selling houses after remodeling them, claiming that he has made more money in that business than in acting. Macarons, the French cookie dessert, actually originated in Italy, and it was not until the 17th century that they were brought to France by Catherine de' Medici when she married Henry II of France. It was not until the 19th century that they took on their sandwich form, joining two with cream in the middle. Penguin wings function in the same way while they are swimming as the wings of other birds do when they are flying. So technically, penguins fly through the water. The oldest known design of a parachute appears in an anonymous Renaissance manuscript from approximately 1470, more than 400 years before the first airplane. The drawing shows a man in free fall with a cone-shaped parachute with cords tied to his waist. Dumping iron into the ocean can promote the growth of algae, which in turn can absorb excess carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, helping to combat climate change. The first escalator was installed in 1898 in a store in London, England. Since people were afraid to use it, employees were placed at the top, handing out free product samples to encourage them to ride it. Among some of the celebrities who have their own tequila brand are Michael Jordan, Kendall Jenner, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, George Clooney, Adam Levine, Eva Longoria, and Mark Wahlberg. Due to the designation of origin, a drink cannot be called tequila unless it was produced in the states of Jalisco, Tamaulipas, or some municipalities of Guanajuato and Michoacán in Mexico. Pasca was a popular drink in the Roman army. It was made by mixing vinegar, water, and herbs. It was cheap, disinfected the water, and was refreshing under the sun. Soldiers drank it even more than wine, and generals and even Julius Caesar himself shared it to show humility. Its taste was sour, but its practical value made it the energy drink of the empire. There was a period of time in the city of Paris when it became fashionable to wear lightning rods on clothing and accessories such as umbrellas. This device had only recently been invented by Benjamin Franklin. North Korea has still not paid for the 1,000 Volvo cars it ordered from Sweden in the 70s. When they were sent the invoice, they simply ignored it and kept the cars. To this day, they are used to transport guests around the country. According to tests carried out on the Great Wall of China, in some sections, glutinous rice was used in the mortar mixture to hold the structure together, which gave it greater stability. According to a study, half of Americans use subtitles to watch television. One reason for this is that digital recordings allow many overlapping audio tracks, which makes it difficult to clearly understand dialogue. In 2002, a study was conducted in which people underwent fake knee surgery to test the placebo effect, and it was found that they reported feeling less pain in the same way as people who actually had the real surgery. The human genome sequence is composed of between 5% and 8% viral deoxyribonucleic acid that can be traced back to around 35 different times when there were viral invasions in human history. Basically, they became integrated into our genes. In the movie Spider-Man: Homecoming, there is a scene in which the villain Vulture, played by Michael Keaton, can be seen flying in front of the moon. This shot is almost identical to one from Batman from 1989, also starring Keaton, where the Batman symbol can be seen against the moon. The YouTuber Andy George from the channel How to Make Everything once made a chicken sandwich from scratch. He grew the wheat to make the bread, prepared a chicken, went to the ocean for salt water to make salt, among other things. It took him 6 months and cost $1,500 in total. In the end, he said he did not like the taste very much. The characters Bebop and Rocksteady were added to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated series in 1987 solely because the toy company making the figures wanted more characters to sell. Ants use advanced warfare techniques, such as sending special ants to carry out reconnaissance tasks, and they also often send weaker ants to the front lines to distract the enemy and make way for the stronger ones. Lake Baikal in Russia contains 20% of all the unfrozen freshwater on the surface of planet Earth. It is the deepest lake, at almost more than 1 mile deep, and it is the oldest, having been formed 25 million years ago. The country of Mongolia used to have an official navy, even though it has no access to the sea. They only had one boat, and fewer than half of the personnel knew how to swim. Currently, they no longer have a navy. Nintendo has had only 6 different presidents in its history, despite being a company founded in 1889, more than 130 years ago. The most recent change of president was in 2018, when Shuntaro Furukawa took office. 84% of the fat that the human body burns leaves the body in the form of carbon dioxide when we breathe. We are breathing out the fat that we later replace in the form of food. Meanwhile, trees are 50% carbon that comes from the carbon dioxide they absorb from the air during photosynthesis. A gallon of McDonald's sauce that was 20 years old was sold for $10,000 simply because it was a special edition that had the name of basketball player Michael Jordan on it. According to studies, the difference between the predominantly individualistic culture of the West and the more collectivist culture seen in the East may have been caused by the farming techniques needed to produce wheat, which were easier and depended on fewer people, compared to the techniques needed to grow rice, which were more difficult and required the coordination of more people. New Mercedes-Benz cars have a special mechanism that plays a white noise sound just before an imminent crash. This causes the ears to block, which can prevent damage caused by the sound of the airbags or the crash itself. Colombia produces between 50 and 70% of the global emerald market. In recent years, a rumor has gained traction claiming that in China, there are artificial eggs made from sodium alginate, calcium chloride, and calcium carbonate, sold for less than 1/10 of the cost of real eggs. But it has been confirmed that this is a false rumor, and among the viral videos about it is one showing a slime factory in Korea. NASA engineers were having problems with thermal insulation while building the Saturn V rocket, so they asked for help from people who practiced surfing, since they had experience using the same honeycomb-type insulating material. A surgeon in Great Britain developed a new method to help repair hearts that had been damaged after closely studying the anatomical drawings made by Leonardo da Vinci centuries earlier. Croissants are not completely French. They were actually inspired by Austrian Kiefli pastries. What was changed was the dough. In Paris, they used laminated pastry dough to make them. In Latin America, croissants are known by different names, such as cuernitos, cachitos, medialunas, or cangrejitos. The first rap song to reach #1 on the Billboard charts was Rapture by Blondie, sung by lead vocalist Debbie Harry. It was also the first rap video to appear on MTV. According to a study, soccer goalkeepers who wear red have an advantage when stopping penalty kicks. They managed to stop more than those wearing blue or green, but no clear reason was given for why this happens. The only countries in the world where it is allowed to advertise prescription-only medications are New Zealand, Canada, and the United States. In Switzerland, in addition to having underground shelters for all its inhabitants, there is also a strategic plan in which they can blow up strategic roads, bridges, and tunnels to block land access to the country. It was designed during the Cold War era, but it is still maintained today. In Japan, there are very few female sushi chefs. This is due to an old belief that women have warmer hands because of normal hormonal changes, which would cause sushi not to be at an optimal temperature. However, this is changing, and there are more and more women entering the profession. A group of researchers from a university in Texas were studying the history of the pirate Morgan. They were trying to recover instruments from his sunken ship off the coast of Panama, but they ran out of funding. When this became known, they were financially supported by the company that produces Captain Morgan rum. No hurricane has ever crossed the equator. The Coriolis effect, caused by the rotation of the Earth, is what gives hurricanes their spinning motion. At the equator, this force is 0, which makes it impossible for a hurricane to cross it. During his time as an actor before becoming president, Ronald Reagan was an informant who sent information to the Federal Bureau of Investigation about other actors if he suspected they were involved in subversive activities. Due to disputes and a back injury sustained while filming one of the scenes, Tobey Maguire was close to not appearing in the movie Spider-Man 2. He was going to be replaced by actor Jake Gyllenhaal. A champagne cork can travel at more than approximately 25 miles per hour when a bottle is opened. The pressure inside the bottles can be up to 3 times greater than that of an average car tire. The Pink Floyd album The Wall was banned in South Africa in 1980 because many students in schools were singing the chorus of the song Another Brick in the Wall, which is an anthem of protest against the education system. There is a website where you can see in real time how much money Norway's investment fund has, which was started with money from the oil they discovered in the 70s and which belongs to every citizen of that country. Actors who have tattoos that will be visible on camera must have a contract from their tattoo artist allowing them to be shown. This arose after Mike Tyson was sued by the person who made his face tattoo after it appeared in a movie. Bridgmanite is the most abundant mineral compound on planet Earth. It is a dense mixture of iron and magnesium silicates. However, it cannot be found on the surface because it exists in the lower mantle, and the only sample known was found in a meteorite. In Judaism, giving someone a job that can provide self-sufficiency is considered the greatest form of charity that can be given. In a city in Australia, there is a submarine on display in a park, and to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Beatles' visit to that place, people covered the entire submarine with yellow knitted yarn squares. The word vaccine comes from the word cow, the farm animal. This is because to make the first vaccine, cowpox was taken and injected into people, which generated antibodies to prevent the more dangerous human smallpox. Poodle dogs, called caniche in Spanish, which are the official dog of France, actually originated in Germany. They were previously used as hunting dogs, but the French royalty began keeping them as companions. The Parliament building in Germany has a glass dome on its roof that people can climb. This dome symbolizes that citizens are above the government, and that the government must be transparent. Once, a convicted man named Eric James, who had been sentenced to 30 years in prison, submitted a request to extend his sentence to 33 years. This was so it would match the jersey number of National Basketball Association player Larry Bird. His request was approved. The first newspaper was made in China in the year 740, but it was not until the 15th century, with the invention of printing presses, that newspapers began to circulate massively among the population. In the 1970s and 1980s, radio programs and computer games were broadcast through sound, which people could simply record at home on a magnetic tape cassette and load into their computer. In the 19th century, a tax collector in Germany with the last name Doberman also ran a dog kennel. Since he considered his job dangerous, he set out to create a new type of dog to protect him. This is how Doberman dogs came to be. Red Bull and all other energy drinks containing taurine and caffeine were banned in Canada until 2004. In France, Norway, and Denmark, they were also banned, but sales were allowed once no negative health effects were found. For it to qualify as edible gold, the gold leaf used to make food appear more expensive must be 90% 24-karat gold. However, it is not as expensive as it seems because very little gold is used. The New York City Ballet has a shoe budget of $780,000. Dancers go through between 500 and 800 pairs while performing the Nutcracker over 6 weeks, and they use even more in 2 weeks of Swan Lake. NASA flew an F-106B aircraft through 1,496 thunderstorms solely to see how they could improve aircraft lightning protection standards. It was struck by lightning 714 different times. In every movie of Phase 2 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, someone can be seen losing an arm or a hand. The president of Marvel Studios, Kevin Feige, explained that this is a tribute to the movie Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back, in which the same thing happens to Luke Skywalker at its climax. The sun is the most perfect sphere observed in nature. Other examples of natural spheres are bubbles, water droplets, and atoms. It is impossible to distinguish smells while we sleep. If you have ever dreamed of the aroma of your favorite food, it was completely generated by your brain and was not influenced by anything external. At the residence of the Prime Minister of Great Britain lives a cat named Larry, who has held the title of Chief Mouser of the Cabinet Office since the year 2011. During his tenure, there have been 4 different prime ministers. In 1848, the British East India Company sent a botanist to the forbidden part of China, where foreigners were not allowed to enter, to steal tea seeds that were only available in that territory and take them to India. A few years later, India became the largest tea producer in the world, and China's economy was ruined. Since the end of the Second World War, Canada has been naming thousands of previously unnamed lakes after fallen soldiers. According to estimates, there are more than 800,000 lakes in that country, and thousands still do not have names. The Burger King restaurant in Australia is called Hungry Jack's because when they first tried to register the name, they discovered it had already been taken by a shop in the city of Adelaide. The National Football League playoff game between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Chicago Bears in 1988 was played with so much fog on the field that the players could not see the sidelines, and the referees had to announce over the loudspeakers what was happening on each play to inform the crowd. The Hebrew language version of the book, The Hobbit, that was commercially used until the year 2012, was actually a translation based on the English edition made by Israeli pilots who were held captive in an Egyptian prison in 1970, who wrote it simply to pass the time. Some squirrels hang mushrooms they find in order to preserve them during the winter, similar to how jerky is made. This also helps other food they store last longer without spoiling. According to a report by an oil company, reducing macho workplace culture on an oil platform in the Gulf of Mexico resulted in 84% fewer accidents, while productivity and efficiency increased. Director Sam Raimi always includes the same 1973 Oldsmobile Delta in a scene in his movies, including the Spider-Man films and Doctor Strange too. According to a study, 13.6% of women showed symptoms of post-traumatic stress after giving birth to their first child. Even though between 10% and 15% of the world's population is left-handed, in Springfield, the city of the Simpsons, there is a much higher percentage, and many characters have been seen using their left hand more often, including Bart and Marge Simpson. The creator of the series, Matt Groening, is left-handed. At Don Mueang International Airport in Bangkok, Thailand, there is a full golf course located between two of its runways. There are red lights that warn golfers who are playing at that moment that an airplane is about to land. There are nearly the same number of people in the Tokyo metropolitan area as in the entire country of Canada. There are many giant concrete arrows across the United States that remain from the first route used for airmail. Pilots followed the arrows to know which direction to go. There is an annual lying competition in England. Competitors from all over the world attend and have 5 minutes to tell the biggest and most convincing lie they can. Politicians and lawyers are banned from entering the competition because they are considered too good at it. Designers of artificial flavors must have completed 7 years of training under a master flavorist in order to be hired. They are one of the most important jobs for food companies, since every product needs a flavor specialist. Roulette wheels in the United States are different from those in other countries because they include the 0 and 00. This lowers the odds of winning to 1 in 38, while in other places it is 1 in 37 when betting on individual numbers. Opossums are natural enemies of ticks. It is estimated that a single opossum can destroy more than 5,000 ticks during one summer and cause them to stop appearing in its territory. The Roman Emperor Antoninus Pius had the most peaceful reign of any leader in antiquity. During his time as emperor, which lasted 23 years starting in the year 138, there were no conflicts. He was recognized for his effective style of governance. It is not known why the myth emerged that garlic scares vampires. It is believed to be because garlic is an antibiotic and vampirism was seen as a disease, or also because it is thought to scare away mosquitoes that extract people's blood when they bite, just like vampires. The tree species Ginkgo biloba is more than 270 million years old. It is one of the oldest trees, is almost never susceptible to pests, and is the only living organism known to have survived the Hiroshima nuclear bomb. According to the BBC documentary Atom, the human body generates around 8,000 times more power than the sun, pound for pound. This can be demonstrated by comparing energy production by volume. The first countries to begin recognizing esports video game players as professional athletes in order to simplify their visa process were South Korea, China, and South Africa. Currently, countries such as Russia, Italy, Denmark, Nepal, the United States, Finland, and Germany have also done so. There is a city called Y in Arizona that was originally intended to be named Y, pronounced Y in English. This was because two highways intersected nearby and formed a Y shape, but the name could not be a single letter, since the minimum was 3. Frank Baum wrote 13 sequels to his book The Wizard of Oz. This was thanks to letters he received from fans of the book asking for more stories. He wrote around 1 sequel per year until the end of his life. A person who went to see the Tom Cruise movie Jack Reacher from 2012 complained to the authorities in his country, New Zealand, because an explosion shown in the trailer was removed from the final cut. He managed to get a refund for his ticket. Coca-Cola sales in Sweden dropped to 50% during the end-of-year holiday season. This is due to the tradition of consuming a drink called julmust in that country, which is a carbonated beverage made with hops extract and sugar. Despite having only 4% of the world's population, the United States generates, on average, 12% of all the garbage humans produce each year. This is equivalent to more than approximately 1,543 pounds of trash per year for each American. Researchers put stilts on the legs of ants to see if this affected their ability to return to their nest. They found that all of them walked past the nest and then stopped to search for it, since their steps were longer because of the stilts. Thanks to this, it was determined that ants count their steps to locate their nest, as if they had a kind of built-in pedometer. Scientists placed a type of mold on a map similar to that of the city of Tokyo to see how it would spread, placing food at the points where the main urban centers are located. After one day, the mold created a network almost identical to Tokyo's train system, which was designed to be as efficient as possible. In the 17th century, for some reason, many people in Europe believed that Egyptian mummy powder had magical healing powers. Many mummies of great historical and cultural value were destroyed because of this. There were even people in Egypt who sold them on the street to visitors. According to a 2013 investigation, the company Frito-Lay spent more than $30 million per year on 500 chemists and psychologists whose mission was to create the perfect formula for Cheetos, with the color, aroma, and texture needed to make people consume more. Actor Arnold Schwarzenegger wanted to keep the Mr. Freeze costume he used in the movie Batman and Robin, but Warner Brothers refused to sell it to him. Instead, they agreed to rent it to him for only $1 per year. According to the law in different countries, biting someone with your natural teeth is a lesser offense and has fewer consequences than biting someone with dentures, since they can be considered a tool to cause harm. In 2015, in a city in New Jersey, 2 daycare employees were arrested after organizing a fight club for children aged 4 to 6. There is a song by the band Bloodhound Gang called Ralph Wiggum, named after the character from The Simpsons, and the lyrics are made up only of phrases spoken by Ralph during episodes of the series. Dr. Arthur Lintgen became famous for being able to identify pieces of classical music simply by observing the different textures of a vinyl record, which are what make the needle vibrate and produce sound. In 2022, James Hong became the oldest actor to receive a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame at 93 years old. He has appeared in more than 600 productions over 70 years. Each aircraft carrier of the United States military has a desalination plant that can convert up to approximately 396,000 gallons of seawater into purified drinking water each day. According to scientific calculations, the next eruption of the Yellowstone supervolcano should have occurred 40,000 years ago, since the last time it erupted was 640,000 years ago, ejecting material thousands of miles away. This phenomenon created what is now known as Yellowstone National Park. The longest natural bridge in the world is located in China and is called Xianren, or Fairy Bridge. It was known only to local people because of the remote terrain where it is located. It was not discovered by the rest of the world until the year 2010, thanks to someone exploring satellite images on Google Earth. Once, the rapper Lil Wayne was expelled from a charity basketball game against violence after he tried to fight with a referee over a foul call. One day, George Harrison decided to write a song using the first words he found when opening a book at random in his parents' house. That is how he found the phrase, "gently weeps," which inspired him to write the hit, "While My Guitar Gently Weeps." In the movie Captain America: Civil War, during one scene, Hawkeye sarcastically calls Tony Stark the Futurist. In reality, this was a reference to the music album The Futurist, released by Robert Downey Jr. in 2004, which was not well received by critics and had very little success. There is spray-on clothing that can be applied directly to the body and reused multiple times. It was developed by Spanish fashion designer Manuel Torres. It has only been used at special events due to its limited practicality. During a concert on a tour in 1955 in Ghana, the American musician Louis Armstrong suddenly stopped in the middle of a song because he became emotional after noticing that a dancer looked very much like his mother. Shortly afterward, he stated that at that moment, he realized he came from that country and from his ancestors, so he adopted Ghana as his second homeland. It is true that boiling vegetables causes them to lose nutrients. This happens because they contain water-soluble nutrients, such as vitamin C, B vitamins, and folic acid, which leach out of the food and remain in the water. James Earl Jones, who has provided the voice for characters such as Darth Vader and Mufasa in The Lion King, had a stuttering problem during his childhood that even led him to stop speaking for several years. But thanks to the support of one of his teachers, who had him read aloud every day, he discovered that he had a gift for performing poetry. According to the Global Peace Index, the most peaceful countries in the world are Iceland, New Zealand, Ireland, and Denmark, while the least peaceful are Afghanistan, Yemen, Syria, and South Sudan. One of the earliest cities to ever exist was Çatalhöyük, located in what is now Turkey, which was unique because it was built without streets. The houses were connected, and most were entered through holes in the roof, requiring ladders to move from place to place. France and the Netherlands have a land border, but it is not located in Europe. It is in the Caribbean, on the island of Saint Martin, the smallest inhabited island in the region, whose territory is divided in half between lands of both countries. It would take you approximately 18 months to walk the 12,427 miles of the Great Wall of China, the longest structure ever built. Director James Cameron wanted the singer Billy Idol to play the character T-1000, the villain in the movie Terminator 2. His appearance was used to create the storyboards, but it did not happen because he had a motorcycle accident days before filming began. The ginkgo biloba tree is considered a living fossil. Fossils of this species more than 290 million years old have been found, and it has barely changed since then. All other species of its class and of the ginkgo genus have long been extinct. A traditional food from Nigeria, fufu, should not be chewed because it is considered offensive. It must be swallowed. It is made from yam, a tuber that is popular in many regions of the world. Bumblebees often do warm-up exercises when it is cold before flying, to avoid falling while they are in the air. On every continent, there is at least one city named Rome. In total, there are 35 cities around the world with the same name as the famous Italian city. Great Britain declared war on Iceland on 3 occasions between 1956 and 1976 due to multiple disputes over fishing zones. This is known as the Cod Wars. Microsoft registered a patent that allows different video devices, such as televisions or the discontinued Kinect accessory, to detect the number of people watching in order to stop video playback and charge more if there are too many viewers. The record for the most people on a single airplane flight occurred in 1991, when 1,086 Ethiopians were evacuated on a Boeing 747 to Jerusalem in what was called Operation Solomon. By the time they landed, the number had increased to 1,089, since 2 babies were born during the flight. The first automobile was created in France by Nicolas Joseph Cugnot in 1769, and what is considered the first modern automobile was made in 1886 by Carl Benz in Germany, who shortly afterward would found Mercedes-Benz. The Greeks and Romans did not wear pants because they were seen as a symbol of low education and lack of civility, since they were generally worn by barbarians. The sung Sega title that appears at the beginning of the first Sonic game took up nearly 15% of the total memory of the Sega Genesis cartridge it came on. The Sega chant remains a distinctive brand signature to this day. There is a small area in the Pacific Ocean where rockets and space stations that are no longer needed are disposed of. This place is known as the Spacecraft Cemetery. It is preferred for dropping these objects because it is near the point farthest from any landmass. Most of the coal we mine on the planet today originated during a stage millions of years ago in which trees fell but did not decompose, causing the ground to fill with wood, which led to massive fires. This stage ended when organisms such as fungi evolved that eat wood and reintegrate it into the environment. Citizens of Singapore are the only ones in the world whose passport allows them to enter North Korea, South Korea, China, and the United States without needing a visa. The Singapore passport allows entry to 192 countries without a visa and is the second most powerful after Japan's, which grants access to 193 countries. Due to a lack of budget, Pablo Picasso's painting The Old Guitarist from 1903 was painted over another painting that depicted a woman in a field with a child next to a sheep and a bull. In Northern Ireland, in addition to English, Irish is an official language. Despite this, there are more people who speak Polish in this country than Irish. There is a psychological phenomenon called the Chivas Regal effect, in which raising the price of a product without changing its quality causes its sales to increase. since buyers often perceive something more expensive as being of higher quality. In Great Britain, it has been observed that electricity demand rises dramatically during halftime of Premier League soccer matches. This is because people usually turn on their electric kettles to make tea during the 15-minute break. Some Starbucks coffee shops in Saudi Arabia do not feature the famous siren in their logo. Instead, they use an altered version with ocean waves that are actually part of the siren's hair, along with the crown and star. Once, Henry Ford, founder of the Ford Automobile Company, destroyed with his own hands a prototype of the new Model T that his engineers had presented to him because he did not want any updates or improvements to be made. A Japanese farmer discovered a golden seal while repairing an irrigation system in 1784. This seal turned out to be 95% pure gold and was a gift from the Emperor of China to Japan from the year 54. It became the oldest known proof of contact between these two countries. In the 17th century, the French astronomer Adrien Auzout was determined to build a telescope of approximately 984 feet, since he believed the magnification would allow him to observe animals on the moon. But in the end, he was unable to do so. The pizza chains Domino's Pizza and Little Caesars, two of the largest restaurant chains in the world, were founded less than approximately 19 miles apart in Michigan, United States. To this day, they keep their corporate offices close to each other. Thanks to food production technology, such as motorized equipment, today a single farmer can produce enough food to feed 155 people. By comparison, in 1940, a farmer could feed only 19 people. This statistic comes from the United States, but a similar increase has been observed worldwide. After the economic crisis of 1929, known as the Great Depression, many people in a city in Florida, United States, followed the advice of a banker who claimed that Coca-Cola stock would rise significantly in value. As a result, 67 residents became millionaires. The city had fewer than 7,000 people. During a single frame of the 2022 movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, a YouTube video titled "Illuminati Symbols Hidden in Hollywood Movies in One Frame" appears, making reference to the movie itself. Wildcats are considered responsible for the global extinction of at least 33 animal species, most of them birds. Due to strict censorship laws in cartoons during the 1990s, Spider-Man only punched someone 3 times throughout the 65 episodes across 5 seasons of the animated series Spider-Man from 1994. Spider-Man only fought villains using wrestling holds and shooting webs at them. The MTV series 16 and Pregnant caused a reduction of 5.7% in the teenage pregnancy rate in the United States in the 18 months following its premiere. The countries of Slovakia and Slovenia are the ones most often confused with each other. It has happened many times that during official visits, the wrong flag is displayed or the national anthem is mixed up. It was even said that staff from both embassies in the city of Washington, D.C. would meet from time to time to exchange mail that had been sent to the wrong country. To this day, science has not reached an agreement on why most people are right-handed, while there are fewer left-handed individuals. In 1970, due to a dispute over wheat production between a farming family and the government of Australia, this family declared their territory independent, creating a kind of micronation called the Principality of Hutt River, which lasted until 2020 when it was reintegrated into Australia. In the country of Vietnam, there is a bridge called Da Nang that is shaped like a dragon. It was built in 2013. It is made of steel, and the dragon can breathe fire from its mouth as part of a show held on special occasions. The Lamborghini driven by Bruce Wayne in Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy is a Murcielago model.
In 2012, a woman in France received her phone bill with an amount due of 11,721 billion euros, the equivalent of 6,000 times the gross domestic product of France. When she called the company to clarify her situation, she was told she had to pay it no matter what. It was only after insisting many times that they realized the mistake. While watching the movie Stuart Little in 2009, Hungarian art historian Gergely Barkay recognized the painting Sleeping Lady with a Black Vase by Robert Barony, which had been missing for more than 90 years. It was in the background of a scene as set decoration. In 2014, the painting was sold at auction for $85,000. In the 1980s, the Swedish Navy detected sounds they suspected were hostile Soviet submarines, which was causing diplomatic tensions until they realized the sounds were actually coming from gas released by fish living in the area. This research won a Nobel Prize. The popular child actress of the first half of the 20th century, Shirley Temple, once went with her mother to a mall during Christmas when she was 6 years old, where Santa Claus approached her and asked for her autograph. According to an interview she gave to a newspaper in 1961, this made her begin to have doubts about the existence of Santa Claus. But hey, what if he really was the real one and simply wanted her autograph? Oil was first used as fuel in China more than 2,000 years ago. They had drilled wells and bamboo pipelines used for salt production by evaporating water. By the year 1000, it was already being used to heat homes and for lighting.
If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like it and share it with your friends. Subscribe so you don't miss more interesting content. Leave your comments and click on any of these videos. See you next time.